So, how can we go from a big idea to the little idea? Well, first thing we have to do is put down the coffee cup. Then, we have to think about things differently. And this is always the challenge. Think about things differently. Now, with the little ideas, we can find them two different places. The first place we can find them, these little ideas, is within big ideas. Okay, so that's the first place to find a little idea is within a big idea. And I know you're thinking, Mr. K, you just told us we can't use those big ideas. I said within. So now, what I want us to do is to think about, right? One of the things that we had talked about was high school graduation. It's not just that ceremony, but it's those 12 years, right? So now what I want you to do is to think about 12 years of your life represented herein by this bar, right? Now, there's no way to talk about 12 years of your life in a meaningful way within that small word count that we have for the narrative essay. So now, what I want you to do is to think about your life instead of 12 years, right, and divide it up. Now, so if we stop to think about it, to graduate, you had to complete elementary school, middle school, and then high school, right? So if you think about it, there was elementary school, middle school, and then high school, right? These are the different levels of schooling that we all went through. So now, narrow down. What do we have to do? Narrow down. So let's just pick high school, right? Those 4 years of high school. Now people say, ooh, I can write about 4 years of high school. Really? Oof. If you can write about 4 years of high school in just several hundred words, I feel sorry for what you did in high school because you probably spent most of your time sitting on the sofa. Now, instead of that, so what do? Let's just pick 1 year, right, of high school. And of course, this is everybody's senior year of high school. People say, I can do that, Mr. K. Again, what do we have to do? Narrow down, right? Senior year of high school was 2 semesters, right? There was the fall semester and then the spring semester. Now, you might have started to notice a trend. We're always doing this, right? We're always digging deeper. We're getting closer and closer. So now, let's just pick spring semester of your senior year of high school. Now, inside of that, you had to take, if we think about it, remember back, you had to take many different classes in order to graduate. Now, let's see, for example, you had to take bio, you had to take government, you had to take, algebra. Yeah, you remember that? Chances are you had to take a foreign language, right? And all those different classes. Now, watch this. If we just take that one class of my spring semester of my senior year of the 4 years I spent in high school of the 12 years I spent in public education, now we have something to focus upon. So now, right? So Algebra 2 with trigonometry, and why they make teenagers who are going through puberty have to sit through classes like this, I have no idea, but that's a different story for another day. So now what we have to do is we have to take this idea and then we have to apply, if you remember, the Holy Trinity of writing, the rule of 3. So now we're going to take this, right, and we're going to generate a web of ideas. So, right, in order to graduate, I had to have so many math credits. So how was I able to pass Algebra 2 with trig? And I just heard what everybody said, and they said, I cheated. No, you didn't. No, you didn't, right? So now, how did you pass Algebra 2 with trig? So what I do, I had to ask myself a question. Now remember, once we ask a question, that leads to answers. And it is answers that give us examples, right? Answers give us examples. Now, a lot of people said, I had to study. That is a tell, that's not a show. That is not an example. So watch this, right? In order to pass Algebra 2 with trigonometry, to have enough math credits in order to graduate, right? This is the whole thing. What did I have to do? Well, I had to meet with a tutor. I don't know about y'all, but in addition to tutor, I had to meet with friends and get their help who were good in math after school. So in other words, after, instead of goofing around, I had to sit down and just do more algebra. And it still hurts my head today. What else did I have to do? I had to stay after school to meet with the teacher, right? To get more help. I also had to make flashcards that had the different formulas on there so I could get used to picking them out and become familiar with working with them, so I'd become familiar, right? So now, when we just start to bullet out or web out all these different ideas, remember that we can't write about everything, because this is the rule of what? The rule of 3. So out of these different answers, right, different examples, guess how many I'm going to pick? That's right, I'm going to pick 3. Now, which ones will I pick? The best ones. Well, what are the best ones, Mr. K? The ones when you're pre-writing and just starting to jot down as many different details that start to flesh out different descriptions, you want to go with those that are the nice big fat ones. If you're looking at your pre-writing, and say, for example, here, I made flashcards. Some had the quadratic equation and some didn't. There's no way to flesh that out into a paragraph. So then what I would do with that idea is I would take it and kick it out, and then that would give me my 3. So this is one way to come up with the little ideas, is to remember that they live inside of big ideas. And how do we get there? Narrow, dig, narrow, dig. And you might have noticed, in order to get to this level, to have a paragraph talking about the tutor that I had, who was a college student at a nearby college when I was in high school, and his name was Tom Bowler, and he was a math major, right? And we met 2 days a week, and my parents paid for that tutor, thankfully. Now see, what happens? I went from, right, so now I'm a very high level of specificity. That's very, very different than talking about 12 years of my life. So this is, again, one way to come up with a little idea is to realize that exists inside of a big idea, but you have to narrow down, narrow down, narrow down, narrow down, narrow down, and it's going to take many different levels of digging. It's like an onion or a parfait that has layers. You have to dig, you have to dig, you have to dig to get to that level that you can work with. That's one way. So in the next video, we'll talk about another way to uncover little ideas.